And we are live. Peace and love, everyone. Welcome to the Real Talk with Rasta Ren on the Sunday afternoon. Give thanks to all for all the support. Been a little busy. Let me turn the light around. Saw this thing about an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, so was kind of looking into it and all that. So sorry for being a little late, but welcome to the stream. Thanks for all the support. You know what I mean? Last time we were on, we went through the last book of Enki. We started with chapters 7, went through chapter 10. So this week we're going to go through chapter 11 through chapter 14. And this is going to conclude the entire thing. Again, thanks for the support. You know what I mean? Much appreciated. So without further ado, let's dive right into what the last book of Enki for me and you. Let me know if the audio okay, guys. Drop me a chat. Let me know if you're hearing everything.
Synopsis of the 11th tablet. The spaceport's land, till moon, is declared a neutral zone. It is granted to Ninmah, who is renamed Ninharzag. Marduk gets the Dark Lands, the Enlilites the Olden Lands. Marduk's grandsons quarrel. Satu murders Asar. Impregnating herself, Asar's wife Asta bears Haran. In aerial battles over Tilmoon, Haran vanquishes Satu. The Enlilites deem it prudent to prepare another spaceport. Enki's son Dumuzi and Inanna, Enlil's granddaughter, fall in love. Fearing the consequences, Marduk causes Dumuzi's death. Seeking his body, Inanna is put to death, then resurrected. Inanna launches a war to seize and punish Marduk. The Enlilites break into his hideaway in the Great Mount. They seal the uppermost chamber to entomb Marduk alive. Marduk's wife, Sarpanit, and his son Nabu plead for his life. Ningizida, knowing the Mount's secrets, reaches Marduk. Marduk, his life spared, goes into exile. Enki and Enlil divide the earth among their other sons. Praise to Ninharzag on earth, the peacemaker. In unison the Anunnaki proclaimed. During the first Shar, after the deluge, Ninharzag to cool down tempers managed. Nibiru with gold to resupply was over ambitions and rivalries paramount. Slowly the earth to teem with life returned, with the seeds of life by Enki preserved. What by itself survived was augmented on land and in the air and waters. Most precious of all, the Anunnaki discovered were mankind's own remnants. As in bygone clays, when the primitive workers were created, the Anunnaki, few and strained, for civilized workers now clamored. By the time the first Shar after the deluge was completed, the peaceful truce by an unexpected occurrence was shattered. Not between Marduk and Ninurta, not between the Enki and Enlil clans was the eruption. When Marduk's own sons by the Igigi abetted was tranquility broken. When Marduk and Sarpanit and their sons and daughters on Lamu the deluge outwaited, the two sons Asar and Satu to the daughters of Shamgaz, the Igigi leader, a liking took. When to earth they all returned, the two brothers, the two sisters espoused. Asar, the one called Asta, chose, Satu, the one called Nabat, betrothed. Asar, with his father Marduk in the dark-hued lands to abide, chose. Satu, near the landing place where the Igigi dwelt, with Shamgaz his dwelling made. About the domains on earth was Shamgaz concerned, where shall the Igigi the masters be? So did Shamgaz, the other Ingigi, in sight. Of that Nabat to Satu daily spoke. By staying with his father Asar, the successor alone shall be, the fertile lands he will inherit. So did Shamgaz and his daughter Nabat to Satu day after day say. How the succession in the hands of Satu alone to retain father and daughter schemed. On an auspicious day they made a banquet. Igigi and Anunnaki to it they invited. Asar, unsuspecting, to celebrate with his brother, also came. Nabat, his spouse's sister, prepared the tables. Footstools she also set. She beautified herself with lyra in hand. A song to mighty Asar she sang. Satu before him choice roast meat cut. With salted knife for him fatlings he served. Shamgaz in a large goblet new wine to Asar offered. An admixture for him he made. A large vessel, mighty to look upon, with elixired wine he gave him. In good humor Asar merrily he arose and sang. With cymbals in his hand he chanted. Then by the admixtured wine he was overcome. To the ground he fell down. Let us for a sound sleep take him, the host to the others at the banquet said. They Asar to another chamber carried. In a coffin they him laid. The coffin with tight seals they closed. Into the sea they threw it. When word of what had happened Asta reached, to Marduk her husband's father she raised a wailing. Asar to his death in the sea's depths was brutally thrown. Quickly must the coffin be found. They searched the sea for Asar's coffin. By the shores of the dark-hued land it was found. Inside the stiff body of Asar lay. From its nostrils the breath of life departed. Marduk, his clothes rent, on his forehead he put ashes. My son, Sarpanic cried and wept. Great were her grief and mourning. Enki was distraught and wept. The curse of Cain is repeated to his son in agony, he said. Asta to high heavens a wailing raised. To Marduk for revenge and an heir an appeal she made. Satu his death must meet. By your own seed a successor let me conceive. Let by your name his name remembered be, the lineage surviving. This, alas, cannot be done, Enki to Marduk and Asta said. The brother who killed the brother's brother must be the keeper. For this Satu must be spared. By his seed an heir to Asar you must conceive. By these twists of fate Asta was baffled. Distraught the rules to devise she was determined. Before the body of Asar was wrapped, and in the shroud in a shrine preserved, from his fadeless Asta the life seed of Asar extracted. With it Asta herself made conceive an heir and avenger to Asar to be born. To Enki and his sons, to Marduk and his brothers, Satu word delivered. The sole heir and Marduk's successor am I of the.
If you're familiar with the story about Set, Horus and Set, this sounds a lot familiar, a lot like the story of Horus and Set, so let's get back to it.
Land of the two Narrows, I will be the master. Before the Anunnaki's council, Asta the claim refuted. With Asar's heir I am with child. Among the rivers, bulrushes with the child she hid. The wrath of Satu she was avoiding. Haran she called the boy, to be his father's avenger she raised him. Satu by this was disconcerted. Shamgaz from ambitions did not retreat. From earth year to earth year the Igigi and their offspring from the landing place spread. Until the borders of Tilmun in Harzag's sacred region, closer they moved. To overrun the place of the celestial chariots the Igigi and their earthlings threatened. In the dark-hued lands the child Haran by Earth's quick life cycles to a hero grew. By his great-uncle Gibel was Haran adopted. By him was he trained and instructed. For him Gibel winged sandals for soaring fashioned. To fly like a falcon he was able. For him Gibel a divine harpoon made. Its arrows bolts of missiles were. In the highlands of the south did him Gibel the arts of metals and smithing teach. The secret of a metal called iron Gibel to Haran revealed. From it weapons Haran made. From local earthlings an army he raised. To challenge Satu and the Igigi northward. Across land and river they marched. When Haran and his earthlings army the border of Tilmun, the land of the missiles, reached. Satu to Haran words of challenge sent. Between us two alone is the conflict. Let us one-on-one in contest meet. In the skies above Tilmun, Satu in his whirlwind for combat Haran awaited. When Haran toward him like a falcon skyward soared, a poisoned dart at him Satu shot. Like a scorpion's sting it Haran failed. When Asta this saw, a cry to heaven she sent forth. For Ningazida she cried out. From his celestial boat Ningazida came down. To save the hero, for his mother he came. With magic powers Ningazida the poison to benevolent blood converted. By morning was Haran healed. From the dead was he returned. Then with a fiery pillar, like a heavenly fish with fins and a fiery tail, Ningazida to Haran provided. Its eyes from blue to red to blue their colors changed. Toward the triumphant Satu, Haran in the fiery pillar soared. Far and wide each other they chased. Fierce and deadly was the battle. At first Haran's fiery pillar was hit. Then with his harpoon Haran Satu smote. To the ground Satu crashing down came. By Haran in tethers he was bound. When before the council Haran with his captive uncle came, they saw that he was blinded, his testicles squashed. Like a discarded jar he stood. Let Satu blind and airless live, so did Asta to the council say. To end his days as a mortal, among the Igigi the council his fate determined. Triumphant was Haran, declared the throne of his father to inherit. On a metal tablet was the council's decision inscribed. In the hall of records they placed it. In his abode, Marduk with the decision was pleased. By what had happened he was sorrowed. Though Haran, a son of Asar, his son was, from Shamgaz the Igigi he was descended. A domain, one as among the Anunnaki allocated, to him was not given. Having lost both sons, in each other Marduk and Sarpanit solace sought. In time to them another son was born, Nabu, prophecy bearer they named him. Now, this is the account of why in the far away a new chariot's place was built, and the love of Dumuzi and Inanna that Marduk by Dumuzi's death disrupted. It was after the contesting of Haran and Satu and their aerial battle over Tilmun that Enlil his 3 sons to a council summoned. With concern to them of what was happening, he said, In the beginning the earthlings in our image and after our likeness we made. Now the Anunnaki offspring in the image and likeness of the earthlings became. Then it was Cain who his brother killed. Now a son of Marduk is his brother's killer. For the first time ever, an Anunnaki offspring from earthlings, an army raised. Weapons from a metal of the Anunnaki, a secret, in their hands he placed. From the days when by Alelu and Anzu our legitimacy was challenged, disruption and rule-breaking by the Igigi continued. Now the beacon peaks in the domain of Marduk are located. The landing place by the Igigi is held.
According to according to the documents, this place in the faraway, basically, it was referred to in earlier tablets. This is basically what we have come to know as the New World, right? Basically the West. So let's get back to it.
Now toward the place of the chariots the Igigi are advancing. In the name of Satu to all the heaven-earth facilities they claim will lay. So did Enlil to his 3 sons say. To take counter steps to them he proposed. An alternative heaven-earth facility in secret establish we must. Let it in Ninurta's land beyond the oceans, in the midst of trusted earthlings come to be. Thus was the secret mission in the lands of Ninurta entrusted. In the mountain lands beyond the oceans beside the great lake, a new bond heaven-earth he was setting up. Within an enclosure he placed it. At the foot of the mountains where the gold nuggets were scattered, a plain with firm ground he chose. On it for ascent and descent markings he made. Primitive are the facilities, but the purpose they will serve. So did Ninurta to his father Enlil in good time declare. From there gold shipments to Nibiru can continue. From there in need we too can ascend. At that time what as a blessed event began as a horrible occurrence ended. At that time Dumuzi, Enki's youngest son, to Inanna, Nanar's daughter, a liking took. Inanna, Enlil's granddaughter, by the Lord of Herding was captivated. A love that knows no bounds engulfed them, a passion their hearts inflamed. Many of the love songs that for a long time thereafter were sung, Inanna and Dumuzi were the first to sing them. By song their love they recounted. To Dumuzi, his youngest son, Enki a large domain above the Abzu allotted. Maluha, the Black Land, was its name. Highland trees there grew. Its waters abundant were. Large bulls among its river reeds roamed. Greatly numbered were its cattle. Silver from its mountains came. Its copper bright as gold was a glitter. Greatly beloved was Dumuzi. By Enki after the death of Asar he was favored. Of his youngest brother Marduk was jealous. Inanna by her parents Nanar and Ningal was beloved. Enlil by her cradle Set. Beautiful beyond describing she was. In martial arts with Anunnaki heroes she competed. Of journeys in the heavens and of celestial boats from her brother Utu she learned. A sky ship of her own to roam in earth's skies to her the Anunnaki presented. After the deluge on the landing platform, Dumuzi and Inanna their eyes on each other set. At the dedication of the artificed mountains was between them a warm encounter. Hesitant at first they were, he of Enki's clan, she of Enlil an offspring. When Ninharzag for peace the disputing clans together brought, Inanna and Dumuzi away from the others to be together managed, love to each other they professed. As they went strolling together, sweet words of alluring love to each other they said. Side by side they lay down, one heart with the other heart chatted. Around her waist Dumuzi put his arm, like a wild bull to take her he wished. Let me teach you, to Inanna Dumuzi said. Gently she kissed him, then to him of her mother she spoke. What fib could I tell my mother? What words will you tell Ningal? Let us of our love my mother tell, of joy cedar perfume she will on us sprinkle. To the dwelling place of Ningal, Inanna's mother, the lovers went. To them Ningal her blessing gave, of Dumuzi the mother of Inanna approved. Lord Dumuzi, as a son-in-law of Nanar, you are worthy to him, she said. Dumuzi, as bridegroom by Nanar himself, was welcomed. Inar's brother Utu, let it so be, said. Perchance the espousing peace between the clans truly will bring Enlil to them all, said. When of the love and betrothal Dumuzi to his father and brothers spoke, Enki of peace through espousal also was thinking. His blessing to Dumuzi he gave. Dumuzi's brothers, all except Marduk, about the espousal were joyful. A betrothal bed of gold by Gibel was fashioned, Nergal blue-hued lapis stone sent. Sweet dates, a fruit by Ninanna favored, beside the bed they in a pile placed. Under the fruits the beads of lapis they hid for Inanna to discover. As the custom was, to perfume and clothe Inanna a sister of Dumuzi was sent. Geshtiana, a sister-in-law to be, was her name. To Inanna, what was in her heart revealed of her future with Dumuzi, to her she said, A vision of a great nation I have, as a great Anunnaki, Dumuzi there will rise. His name over others shall be exalted, his queen spouse I shall be. Princely status we will share, rebellious countries we shall together subdue. To Dumuzi I will status give, the country I will rightly direct. Inanna's visions of rulership and glory by Geshtinanna to her brother Marduk were reported. By Inanna's ambitions Marduk was greatly disturbed. To Geshtinanna a secret plan he told. To her brother Dumuzi, to the herder's dwelling Geshtinanna went. Lovely to behold and perfumed, to her brother Dumuzi thus she said, Before, with your young wife in your embrace, with you will sleep. A legitimate heir by a sister born you must have. Inanna's son to succession shall not be entitled. On your mother's knees he will not be raised. She put his hand in her hand. She pressed her body against his body. My brother, with you I will lie down. Bridegroom, with you a peer of Enki we shall have. So did Geshtinanna to Dumuzi whisper, a noble issue from her womb to have. Into her womb Dumuzi poured the semen, by her caressing he fell asleep. During the night Dumuzi had a dream, a premonition of death he envisioned. In the dream 7 evil bandits he saw coming into his dwelling. The master has sent us for you, son of Dutter, to him they said. They chased away his ewes, his lambs and kids they drove away. The headdress of lordship they took off his head, the royal robe off his body they tore. The staff of shepherding they took and broke, his cup from its peg they threw down. Naked and barefooted they seized him, in fetters they his hands bound. In the name of the princely bird and the falcon they left him dying. Disturbed and startled, Dumuzi in the middle of the night awoke. To Geshtinana the dream he told. The dream is not favorable, Geshtinana to the distraught Dumuzi said. Marduk of raping me will accuse you, evil he will send. To try you and disgrace you he will order the liaison with an Ilanite to disunite. As a wounded beast, Dumuzi a cry roared out. Betrayal, betrayal, he shouted. To Utu, Inanna's brother, help me, word he sent. The name of his father Enki as a talisman he uttered. Through the desert of Imush, the snake's desert, Dumuzi rushed to escape. To the place of mighty waterfalls from the evildoers he ran to hide. Where the gushing waters, the rocks to slippery smoothness made, Dumuzi slipped and fell. The onrushing waters his lifeless body in a white froth swept away, evil emissaries to arrest you. Now this is the account of Inanna's descent to the lower Abzu, and the great Anunnaki war, and how Marduk, in the Ekkur, alive was imprisoned. When the lifeless body of Dumuzi from the Great Lake's waters by Ningal was retrieved, to the abode of Nergal and Ereshkigal in the lower Abzu the body was brought. On a stone slab was the dead body of Dumuzi, a son of Enki, placed. When of what had happened word to Enki was sent, Enki rent his clothes, on his forehead he put ashes. My son, for Dumuzi he lamented. What have I sinned to be so punished, out loud he asked. When I to earth from Nibiru came, Ea, he whose home is waters, was my name. With waters did the celestial chariots obtain their thrust power. In waters I splashed down. Then by an avalanche of waters the earth was swept over. In waters did Asar my grandchild drown. By waters my beloved Dumuzi is now dead. Everything I had done for righteous purpose did I do it. Why am I punished? Why has fate against me turned? So did Enki bewail and lament. When from Geshtiana the ferocity of occurrences was discovered, greater was Enki's agony. Now Marduk my firstborn for his deed will also suffer. By the disappearance and death of Dumuzi was Inanna worried, then grieved. Then to the lower Abzu she hurried, Dumuzi's body for burial to retrieve. When Ereshkigal, her sister, of the arrival of Inanna at the precinct's gates was told, Ereshkigal a devious scheme on the part of Inanna suspected. At each of the 7 gates, one of Inanna's accoutrements and weapons was from her removed. Then, unclothed and powerless before Ereshkigal's throne, of scheming an error by Nergal, Dumuzi's brother, she was accused. Trembling with fury, Ereshkigal to her sister's explanations would not listen. Let loose against her the 60 diseases, Ereshkigal, her vizier, Namtar, in anger ordered. By the disappearance of Inanna in the lower Abzu were her parents much worried. Nanar to Enlil in the matter went, Enlil to Enki a message sent. From Nergal his son, Ereshkigal's spouse, Enki what had happened learned. From clay of the Abzu Enki 2 emissaries fashioned, beings without blood, by death rays unharmed. To the lower Abzu he sent them, Inanna to bring back, whether alive or dead. When before Ereshkigal they came, Ereshkigal by their appearance was puzzled. Are you Anunnaki? Are you earthlings? With bewilderment she asked them. Namtar the magical weapons of power against them directed, but unharmed the 2 were. To the lifeless body of Inanna he took them, hanging from a stake she was. Upon the corpse the clay emissaries a pulsar and an emitter directed. Then the water of life on her they sprinkled, in her mouth the plant of life they placed. Then Inanna stirred, her eyes she opened, from the dead Inanna arose. When the 2 emissaries Inanna to the upper world were ready to return, Inanna the lifeless body of Dumuzi to take along them ordered. At the 7 gates of the lower Abzu to Inanna her accoutrements and attributes were returned. To the abode of Dumuzi in the black land the lover of her youth to take the emissaries she ordered. There to wash him with pure water, with sweet oil him anoint. Then to clothe him in a red shroud, upon a slab of lapis lay him. Then in the rocks for him to rest place carve out, the day of arising there to await. As for herself, to the abode of Enki Inanna set her steps. Retribution for her beloved's death she wanted, the death of Marduk the culprit she demanded. There has been death enough, Enki to her said. Marduk as an instigator was, but murder he committed not. When Inanna learned that Marduk would not by Enki be punished, Inanna to her parents and brother went. To high heaven she a wailing raised, justice, revenge, death to Marduk, she cried out. At Enlil's abode his sons Inanna and Utu joined, for a council of war they gathered. Ninurta, whom the rebel Anzu defeated, for strong measures argued. Of secret words between Marduk and the Igigi exchanged, Utu to them reported. Of Marduk, an evil serpent, earth must be rid, Enlil with them agreed. When the demand for Marduk's surrender to Enki his father was sent, Enki to his abode Marduk and all the other sons summoned. Though for my beloved Dumuzi I am still grieving, Marduk's rights I must defend. Though evil did Marduk instigate, by ill fate, not by Marduk's hand, did Dumuzi die. Marduk is my firstborn, Ninki is his mother, for succession he is destined. From death by Ninurta's gang, by us all he must be protected, so did Enki say. Only Gibel and Ningal their father's call heeded. Ningazita was opposed. Nergal was hesitant. Only if in mortal danger he will I help, he said. It was after that a war of ferocity unknown between the two clans erupted. Unlike the contending of Haran and Satu, of earthlings descended it was. A battle between Anunnaki, Nibiruin born among them, on another planet was loosed. By Inanna was the warfare begun. In her skyship to the domains of Enki's son she crossed over. Marduk to battle she challenged. To the domains of Ningal and Gibel she him pursued. To assist her, Ninurta from his storm bird, withering beams at the enemy's strongholds shot. Ishkur from the skies with scorching lightnings and smashing thunders attacked. In the Abzu from the river's fish he washed away, cattle in the fields he dispersed. To the north, the place of the artificed mounts, Marduk then retreated. Pursuing him, Ninurta on the habitation's poison-bearing missiles rained. His weapon that tears apart the people in those lands robbed of their senses. The canals that the river's waters bore, red from blood became. Ishkur's brilliances the night's darkness into flaming days converted. As the devastating battles northward advanced, Marduk in the Eker himself ensconced. Gibel for it an unseen shield devised, Nergal to heaven its all-seeing eye raised. With a weapon of brilliance, by a horn directed, Inanna the hiding place attacked. Haran to defend his grandfather came, by her brilliance was his right eye damaged. While Utu, the Igigi, and their horde of earthlings beyond Tilmoon held off, at the foot of the artifice mounts, Anunnaki, this and that clan supporting, in battle clashed. Let Marduk surrender, let the bloodshed end, so did Enlil to Enki words convey. Let brother talk to brother, to Enki Ninharzag a message sent. In his hideout within the Eker, Marduk his pursuers to defy continued. Within the house which like a mountain is, his final stand he made. Inanna, the massive stone structure could not surmount, its smooth sides her weapons deflected. Then Ninurta of the secret entrance learned, the swivel stone on the north side he found. Through a dark corridor Ninurta passed, the grand gallery he reached. Its vault, by the many-hued emissions of the crystals like a rainbow, was a glitter. Inside, by the intrusion alerted, Marduk with ready weapons Ninurta awaited. With weapons responding, smashing the wonder crystals, Ninurta up the gallery kept going. Into the upper chamber, the place of the great pulsating stone, Marduk retreated. At its entrance, Marduk the sliding stone locks lowered. From one and all admission they barred. Into the Eker, Inanna and Ishkur, Ninurta followed. What next to do they contemplated. Let the encased hiding chamber be Marduk's stone coffin to them, Ishkur said. To 3 blocking stones ready for down gliding, Ishkur their attention drew. Let slow death, by alive being buried, be Marduk's sentence, Inanna her consent gave. At the end of the gallery, the blocking stones let loose. Each one of them 1 stone for plugging slid down, Marduk as in a tomb to seal. Now this is the account of how Marduk was saved and to exile departed, and how the Eker was dismantled and lordship over the lands rearranged. Away from the sun and light, without food or water, Marduk within the Eker alive was entombed. By his imprisonment and punishment without trial, Sarpanit, his spouse, a wailing raised. To Enki, her father-in-law, she hurried. With the young son Nabu, to him she came. To be among the living, Marduk must be returned, to Enki, Sarpanit said. He sent her to Utu and Nanar, who with Inanna can intercede. Wearing a garment of atonement, to the Lord Marduk give life, she pleaded. Let him humbly life continue, rulership he will lay aside. Appeased was not Inanna. For the death of my beloved, the instigator must die, Inanna retorted. Ninharzag, the peacemaker, the brothers Enki and Enlil summoned. Punishment to Marduk must come. Death is not warranted to them, she said. Let Marduk in exile live, the succession on earth to Ninurta submit. Enlil by her words was pleased and smiled. Ninurta was his son, of Ninurta she was the mother. If between succession and life the choice is, what can I, a father, say? So did Enki with heavy heart answer, in my lands widespread is the desolation. Warfare must end. For Dumuzi I am still in mourning. Let Marduk live in exile. If peace is to be returned and Marduk shall live, binding arrangements must be made, Enlil to Enki said. All facilities that heaven and earth bond, to my hands alone must be entrusted. The mastery over the land of the two Narrows to another son of yours you must give. The Igigi who Marduk follow, the landing place must give up and abandon. To a land of no return, by no descendant of Sesudra inhabited, must Marduk in exile go. So did Enlil forcefully declare, to be foremost among the brothers he meant. The hand of fate Enki in his heart acknowledged. Let it so be, with bowed head he said. Ningazita alone the Eker innards knows. Let him over its land the master be. After the decisions by the great Anunnaki were announced, Ningazita for the rescue they summoned. How Marduk from the blocked and sealed innards to extricate was his challenge. To let free the one who alive is buried, a task beyond conceiving to him they gave. Ningazita, the Eker's secret designs contemplated, how to circumvent the blockings he planned. Through a chiseled upper opening Marduk will be rescued, to the leaders he said. At a place which I will show them, a doorway in the stones they will cut. From it upward a twisting passageway they shall bore, a rescue shaft creating. Through hidden hollowings to the Eker's midst they will continue. At the vortex of the hollowings through the stones they will break through. A doorway to the insides they will blow open, thereby the blockings circumventing. Up the grand gallery they will continue, the 3 stone bars they will raise. The uppermost chamber, Marduk's death prison, they will reach. Anunnaki, by Ningazita guided, his outlined plan then followed. With tools that cracked the stones the opening they made, the rescue shaft they fashioned. The insides of the artifice mount they reached, an exit they blew open. Circumventing the 3 blocking stones, the uppermost chamber they reached. On a small platform, the portcullises they raised. Marduk fainted, they rescued. Carefully through the twisting shaft they the Lord lowered, to fresh air they him brought. Outside, Sarpanit and Nabu's spouse and father were awaiting. A joyful reunion it was. When to Marduk his father Enki the terms of release conveyed, Marduk was enraged. I would rather die than my birthright forfeit, he shouted. Sarpanit into his arms Nabu thrust. We are part of your future, she softly said. Marduk was angered, Marduk was humbled. To fate I yield, he inaudibly said. With Sarpanit and Nabu to a land of no return he departed. To a place where horned beasts are hunted, with wife and son he went. After Marduk had departed, Ninurta the Eker through the shaft re-entered. Through a horizontal corridor to the Eker's vulva he went. In its east wall, in a niche artfully fashioned, the destiny stone a red radiance was emitting. Its power to kill me grabs, with a killing tracking it me seizes, Ninurta inside the chamber cried. Take it away, to obliteration destroy it, to his lieutenants Ninurta shouted. Retracing his steps through the grand gallery to the topmost chamber, Ninurta went. In a hollowed-out chest, the heart of the echo pulsated. Its net force by 5 compartments was enhanced. With his baton, Ninurta the stone chest struck. With a resonating sound, it responded. Its gugstone, that directions determined, Ninurta ordered to be taken out, to a place of his choice carried. Coming down the grand gallery, Ninurta the 27 pairs of Nibiru crystals examined. Many in his fight with Marduk were damaged. Some, the struggle intact, survived. To remove the whole ones from their grooves, Ninurta ordered. The others with his beam he pulverized. Outside the house, which like a mountain, is Ninurta in his blackbird sword. To the apex stone his attention he turned. His enemy's epitome it represented. With his weapons he shook it loose. To the ground in pieces it toppled. By this the fear of Marduk is forever ended, Ninurta victorious declared. On the battleground the assembled Anunnaki the praise of Ninurta announced. Like Anu you are made, to their hero and leader they shouted. To replace the incapacitated beacon, a mount near the place of celestial chariots was chosen. Within its innards the salvaged crystals were rearranged. Upon its peaks the gugstone, the stone of directing, was installed. Mount Masu, the mount of the supreme celestial bark, the mount was called. At that time Enlil his 3 sons summoned. Ninlil and Ninharzag also attended. Commands over olden lands to confirm, lordships over new lands to assign they met. To Ninurta, who Anzu and Marduk had vanquished, the Enlilship powers were granted. In all the lands his father's surrogate to be. Of the landing place in the Cedar Mountains, lordship to Ishkur was granted. To his domain northward thereof was the landing place joined. The lands south and east thereof were the Igigi, and their offspring had spread. To Nanar as an everlasting endowment were given by his descendants and followers to keep and to hold. The peninsula wherein the place of the chariots was, in Nanar's lands, was included. Utu, as commander of the place and of the navel of the earth, was confirmed. In the land of the 2 Narrows, as agreed, Enki to Ningishzida the lordship did assign. To that none of Enki's other sons objected, to that Inanna was opposed. To the heritage of Dumuzi, her deceased bridegroom, did Inanna claim lay. A dominion of her own she of Enki and Enlil demanded. How Inanna's demands to satisfy the leaders contemplated, about the lands and the peoples the great Anunnaki who the fates decree counsel took. Regarding the earth and its resettling, words with Anu they exchanged. From the time of the deluge, the great calamity, almost 2 shars have passed. The earthlings have proliferated. From mountain lands to dried lowlands they went. Of civilized mankind, by Sesudra they were descendants. With Anunnaki seed they were intermixed. Offspring of the Igigi who intermarried roamed about. In the distant lands Cain kinfolk survived. Few and lofty were the Anunnaki who from Nibiru had come. Few were their perfect descendants. How settlements for themselves and for earthlings to establish the great Anunnaki considered. However mankind lofty to remain, how to make the many the few obey and serve. About all that, about the future, the leaders with Anu words exchanged. To come to earth one more time, Anu decided. With Antu, his spouse, he wished to come.
Right. So if we're following the story, guys, what we find is that the whole Horus and Set, where the Horus's right eye got struck and all that, and now we're at the point where they're trying to put together a whole government system where they're trying to make sure they have the vast majority obeying that small minority. So let's just dive right into it.
synopsis of the 12th tablet. The soil dries, plains and river valleys are resettled. Plentiful gold comes from the lands beyond the seas. Anu and his spouse Antu arrive for a memorable visit. Reminiscing, the leaders realize they are destiny's pawns. They allocate 3 regions of civilization to mankind. Pardoned by the departing Anu, Marduk remains rebellious. The first region and space facilities are Enlilite lands. Man's first civilization begins in the first region, Sumer. Marduk usurps a site to build an illicit launch tower. Frustrated by the Enlilites, Marduk seizes the second region. He deposes and exiles Ningizida, Thoth, to distant lands. He declares himself Ra, supreme god, in a new religion. He introduces pharaonic reigns to mark a new civilization. Enlil assigns his son Ishkur to protect the metal sources. Inanna is granted dominion in the third region, Indus Valley. To come to Earth one more time, Anu decided. With Antu, his spouse, he wished to come. While his arrival they awaited, the Anunnaki abodes in the Eden to re-establish began. From the mountain lands where descendants of Shem dwelt to the olden land the black-headed people migrated. Upon the newly dried soil the Anunnaki let them settle, food for all to provide. Where Eridu, Enki's first city before the deluge had stood, on top of the myriads of mud and silt a new Eridu was marked out. In its center, upon a raised platform, an abode for Enki and Ninki was built. House of the Lord, whose return is triumphant, it was called. With gold and silver and precious metals by Enki's sons provided it was adorned. Above, in a circle skyward pointing, the 12 constellations by their signs were marked out. Below, as in the Abzu, waters with swimming fishes flowed. In a sanctuary, a place that no uninvited can enter, Enki the me formulas kept. For Enlil and Ninlil, a next Nibrki atop the mud and silt was established. Amid its people's dwellings and cattle folds and stalls, a sacred precinct was walled off. An abode for Enlil and Ninlil therein was built. In 7 stages it arose. A stairway rising as to heaven to the topmost platform led. His tablets of destinies did Enlil there keep. With his weapons it was protected. The lifted eye that scans the lands, the lifted beam that penetrates all. In the courtyard, in its own enclosure, Enlil's fast-stepping skybird was kept. As the time for the arrival of Anu and Antu neared, for their stay in the Eden a new place was selected, neither Enlil's nor Enki's to be. Unuki, the delightful place it was named. Shade trees in it were planted. A pure white structure, the house of Anu, in its midst was built. Its exterior in 7 stages rose, its interior like a king's quarter was. When the celestial chariot of Anu at earth arrived, Anunnaki skyships toward it soared. For a safe landing at the place of the chariots in the Till-moon it was guided. Utu, the place's commander, his great-grandparents to planet Earth welcomed. The 3 children of Anu, Enlil and Enki and Ninharzag, stood there to greet them. They embraced and kissed, they laughed and cried. So long has the separation been. They to each other kept saying, at each other they looked, aging to examine. Though greater in Shars were the parents, younger than the children they looked. The 2 sons looked old and bearded. Ninharzag, once a beauty, was bent and wrinkled. All 5 of them with tears were filled. Tears of joy with sorrowed tears were mingled. In skyships were the guests and their hosts to the Eden taken. In a prepared place beside Unuki, the skyships landed. All the Anunnaki that on earth had stayed as an honor guard were standing. Hail and welcome, in unison to Anu and Antu they were shouting. Then, in a procession, singing and music playing, the Anunnaki to the house of Anu the guests accompanied. In the house of Anu, Anu washed and rested, then he was perfumed and clothed. Antu by female Anunnaki to the house of the golden bed was escorted. There she too washed and rested, then she was perfumed and clothed. In the open courtyard, as an evening breeze the trees' leaves rustled, Anu and Antu on thrones were seated. Flanking them were Enlil and Enki and Ninharzag. Attendants, earthlings who were completely naked, wine and good oil served. Others in a corner of the courtyard, a bull and a ram, gifts of Enlil and Enki, on a fire were roasting. A great banquet was for Anu and Antu prepared, for the sign in the heavens its start was awaiting. On Enlil's instructions, Zumul, who in matters of stars and planets was learned, the steps of the house of Anu ascended, the rising of the planets at evetime to announce. On the first step, Kishar in the eastern skies appeared. Lahamu, or the second step, was seen. Mamu on the third step was announced. Anshar by the fourth step rose. Lamu on the fifth step was seen. The moon from the sixth step was announced. Then, on a signal from Zamul, the hymn, the planet of Anu in the sky rises, began to be sung. For from the topmost step, the seventh, the red-haloed Nibiru into view came. To music the Anunnaki clapped and danced, to music they danced and sang. To the one who grows bright, the heavenly planet of the Lord Anu, they sang. On the signal a bonfire was lit, seen from place to place where the bonfire started. Before the night was over, the whole land of Eden was with bonfires lit. After a meal of bull meat and ram meat, of fish and fowl, with wine and beer accompanied, Anu and Antu to their overnight quarters were accompanied. By Anu and Antu were all the Anunnaki thanked. For several earth days and nights Anu and Antu slept. On the sixth day his two sons and daughter Anu summoned. Of what had on earth transpired their accounts he heard, of the peace and the warfare he learned, of how the earthlings by the oath of Enlil to be wiped off had again proliferated Anu heard, of the gold discovery in the land beyond the oceans and the chariots placed there, Enlil to him revealed. It was then that of the dream and the tablet from Galzu Enki to his father told. By that was Anu greatly puzzled. A secret emissary by that name to earth by me was never sent. So did Anu to the three leaders say. Puzzled were Enki and Enlil. Baffled they at each other looked. On account of Galzu, Zazudra and the seed of life were saved, Enki said. On account of Galzu, on earth we remained, Enlil to his father said. The day to Nibiru you return, you shall die, so did Galzu to us say. Incredulous of that was Anu. The change of cycles indeed havoc did cause, but with elixirs cured it was. Whose emissary, if not yours, was Galzu, Enki and Enlil in unison said. Who the earthlings to save wanted, who on earth made us stay. Ninharzag, her head slowly nodded. For the creator of all did Galzu appear. Was the creation of the earthlings also destined? Of that I must wonder. For a while the four of them were silent, each one past events in his heart recounted. While fates we decreed, the hand of destiny every step directed, so did Anu say. The will of the creator of all is clear to see. On earth and for earthlings only emissaries we are. The earth to the earthlings belongs. To preserve and advance them we were intended. If that is our mission here, let us accordingly act, so did Enki say. The great Anunnaki who the fates decree councils exchanged regarding the lands, to create civilized regions the great Anunnaki decided therein knowledge to mankind provide. Cities of man to establish, therein sacred precincts abodes for the Anunnaki create. Kingship as on Nibiru on earth establish, crown and scepter to a chosen man give. By him the word of the Anunnaki to the people convey.
So now they decided to pass kingship over to the humans rather than keeping it among just themselves as the Anunnaki.
work, and dexterity to enforce. In the sacred precincts, a priesthood to establish, the Anunnaki as lofty lords to serve and worship. Secret knowledge to be taught, civilization to mankind convey. To create 4 regions, 3 for mankind, 1 restricted, the Anunnaki resolved. The first region in the olden Eden land to establish, for Enlil and his sons to dominate. The second region in the land of the 2 Narrows thereafter to follow, for Enki and his sons to lord. The third region, with the other 2 not mingling, in a distant land to Inanna grant. The fourth region, for the Anunnaki alone consecrated, the peninsula of the place of the chariots will be. Now, this is the account of Anu's journey to the lands beyond the oceans, and how in the first region for the Anunnaki cities were reestablished. Having the decision about the 4 region in mankind's civilizations made, Anu about his grandson Marduk inquired. I must see him again, to the leaders Anu said. Whether by Dumuzi and Ningizida to Nibiru inviting, Marduk's ire I myself have caused. So did Anu wonder, to reconsider the punishment of Marduk he wished. When to the lands beyond the oceans you journey, Marduk to meet you will be told. The land where he roams, in those parts of the earth it is, so did Enlil to Anu say. Before the distant lands the royal couple went, the Eden and its lands Anu and Antu surveyed. Eridu and Nibruki they visited, where the cities of the first region were planned they saw. In Eridu, Enlil about Enki complained, the me formulas to himself Enki is keeping. Anu on the seat of honor seated, words of praise to Enki said, my son, for himself a magnificent house built, beautifully on a platform it is raised. To the people that the house surround and serve, great knowledge will Enki give. Now the knowledge that in the Mies is secreted with other Anunnaki must be shared. Embarrassed was Enki to share with all the divine formulas to Anu he promised. In the ensuing days, in skyships traveling, Anu and Antu the other regions surveyed. Then, on the 17th day, to Anuki the royal couple returned for one more night of rest. In the morrow, when the younger Anunnaki before Anu and Antu for a blessing came, Anu to his great-granddaughter Inanna took a liking. He drew her closely, he hugged her and kissed her. Let all my words heed, to the congregated he announced, this place after we leave to Inanna as a dowry is given. Let the sky ship in which we the earth shall survey to Inanna my present be. Joyed, Inanna to dance and sing began. Her praises of Anu as hymns in times to come were chanted. Thereafter, binding farewells to the Anunnaki, for the lands beyond the oceans Anu and Antu departed. Enlil and Enki, and Ninurta and Ishkur with them to the Golden Land went. To impress Anu the king with the great golden riches, Ninurta an abode for Anu and Antu built. Its stone blocks to perfection cut, with pure gold inside were covered. A golden enclosure with flowers of carnelian stones carved, the royal couple awaited. By the shore of the great mountain lake was the abode erected. How the gold nuggets are collected the visitors were shown. There is gold here enough for many shars to come, Anu satisfied said. To a place nearby, Ninurta to Anu and Antu, an artificed mound showed. How to place for melting and refining metals it was made, Ninurta explained. How a new metal from stones was extracted he showed them. Anunnaki made, he called it. How by combining it with the abundant copper and strong metal he invented, he showed them. On the great lake from whose shores the metals came, Anu and Antu sailed. The lake of Anak, Anu called it. Henceforth this was its name. Then from lands from the north, lands where great horned beasts are hunted, Marduk before his father Enki and his grandfather Anu came. Nabu, his son, with him was. When Enki about Sarapanan inquired, Marduk with sorrow of her death them told. Now Nabu alone with me has remained, to his father and grandfather Marduk said. Anu Marduk to his chest pressed. Enough you have been punished to him, he said. With his right hand on Marduk's head, Anu Marduk to be forgiven, blessed. From the golden place high in the mountains, all who had gathered to the plain below went. There, stretching to the horizon, Ninurta, a new place for the chariots, has prepared. Anu and Antu's celestial chariot stood there ready, with gold to the brim it was loaded. As the time for departing came, Anu to his children words of goodbye and guidance said, "Whatever destiny for the earth and the earthlings intended, let it so be. If man, not Anunnaki, to inherit the earth is destined, let us destiny help. Give mankind knowledge, up to a measure secrets of heaven and earth them teach. Laws of justice and righteousness teach them, then depart and leave." So did Anu to his children fatherly instructions give. Once more they hugged, embraced, and kissed, and from the new chariot's place Anu and Antu for Nibiru left. The first to break the sorrowed silence was Marduk. With anger were his words. "What is this new place of celestial chariots?" Of the others an explanation he demanded. "What after my exile without my knowledge has transpired?" When Enki of the decisions about the 4 regions to Marduk told, Marduk's fury knew no bounds. "Why will Inanna, a cause of Dumuzi's death, her own region get?" The decisions have been made. They cannot be altered. So did Enlil to Marduk say. In separate skyships to the Eden and its adjoining lands they returned. Sensing trouble, Enlil Ishkur to stay behind instructed, over the gold watch to keep. To commemorate Anu's visit, a new count of time passage was introduced. By Earth years, not by Nibiru shars, was what on Earth transpired to be counted. In the age of the bull to Enlil dedicated was the count of Earth years begun. When to the Eden the leaders returned, the place of the first civilized region, how to make bricks from mud, the Anunnaki the earthlings taught, therewith cities to build. But where once cities of the Anunnaki alone had stood, cities for both them and earthlings now arose. Therein and in new cities for the great Anunnaki, sacred precincts were consecrated. Therein the Anunnaki with lofty abodes were provided. Temples by mankind they were called. Therein the Anunnaki as lofty lords were served and worshipped. By number ranks were they honored, the heirship to mankind made known. Anu, the heavenly, the rank of 60 held, to Enlil the 50 rank was given. On Ninurta his foremost son did Enlil the same rank bestow. Next in succession was the Lord Enki, the rank of 40 he held. To Nanar, the son of Enlil and Ninlil, the rank of 30 was assigned. To his son and successor Utu, the rank of 20 was allotted. 10 as a number rank to the other Anunnaki leaders' sons was granted. Ranks by the 5s between the female Anunnaki and spouses were shared. When after Eridu and Nibriki and their temple abodes were completed, in Lagash the Gursu precinct for Ninurta was built, his black sky bird there was kept. Inanu, house of 50, was the temple abode for Ninurta, and Baal his spouse called. The supreme hunter and the supreme smiter weapons a gift to Anu, the Inanu protected. Where Sippar before the deluge had been, on top of the mud soil Utu a new Sippar established. In the Ebibar, the shining house, an abode for Utu and his spouse Io was raised. From there Utu for mankind laws of justice promulgated. Where because of silt mud the olden plans could not be followed, new sites were chosen. Adab, a site from Shurabak not distant, for Ninharzag as a new center was made. The house of succor and healing knowledge was her temple abode therein named. The Mies, of how the earthlings were fashioned, Ninharzag in its holy shrine kept. For Nanar, a city with straight streets, canals, and wharves was provided. Urim was its name. House of the throne's seed was its temple abode called, the moon's beams to the lands it reflected. Ishkur to the mountain lands of the north returned, the house of 7 storms his abode was called. Inanna in Unuki resided, in the abode by Anu bequeathed to her she dwelt. Marduk and Nabu in Eridu dwelt. In the Eden their own abodes they did not have. Now this is the account of the first city of men, and of kingship on earth, and how Marduk to build a tower schemed, and wherefore Inanna the Medes stole. In the first region, in the lands of Eden, and in the cities with precincts, by their Anunnaki lords the earthlings' handiworks and crafts were taught. Before long were the fields irrigated, on canal and riverboats soon sailed. The sheepfolds and granaries were overflowing, prosperity the land filled. Enki, land of the lofty watchers, the first region was called. Then, to let the black-headed people a city of their own possess it was decided. Kishi, Scepter City, it was called. In Kishi did the kingship of man begin. Therein, in consecrated soil, Anu and Enlil, the heavenly bright object, implanted. In it, Ninurta, the first king appointed. Mighty man was his royal title. To make it a center for civilized man, Ninurta to Eridu journeyed. The Me tablets that for kingship define formulas hold from Enki to obtain. Properly attired with respect, Ninurta Eridu entered. For the Me of kingship he asked. Enki, the Lord who all the Me's safeguards, 50 Me to Ninurta granted. In Kishi, where the black-headed people with numbers to calculate taught, heavenly Nasaba writing them taught, heavenly Ninkashi beer-making them showed. In Kishi, by Ninurta guided, kiln work and smithing proliferated. Wheeled wagons to male asses harnessed, craftily in Kishi first were fashioned. Laws of justice and righteous behavior in Kishi were promulgated. It was in Kishi that the people's hymns of praise to Ninurta composed. Of his heroic deeds and victories they sang, of his awe-inspiring black bird they chanted. How in faraway lands the bisons he subdued, how the white metal to mix with copper he found. Ninurta's glorious time it was, with the constellation of the archer he was honored. All the while Inanna in Anuki, her lordship in the third region awaited. All the while the domain of her own of the leaders she demanded. The third region after the second one will come, her leaders thus assured her. Having seen how Ninurta to Eridu journeyed, how the Me of kingship he obtained, Inanna in her heart a plan devised. To obtain Me from Enki she schemed. Her chambermaid, Ninshibur, to Eridu she dispatched. A visit by Inanna to announce. On this, hearing Enki to Izamud, his housemaster quickly instructions gave. The maiden, all alone, to my city Eridu her step is directing. When all alone she will arrive, my inner chambers let her enter. Pour for her cold water to freshen her heart, barley cakes with butter give her. Sweet wine prepare, the beer vessels to the rim fill up. When Inanna alone the abode of Enki entered, Izamud, Enki's commands followed. Then when Enki Inanna greeted, by Inanna's beauty he was overwhelmed. With jewelry was Inanna bedecked. By her thin dress her body she revealed. When she bent down, her vulva by Enki was thoroughly admired. From the wine cup sweet wine they drank, for beer drinking a competition they had. Show me the Me's, Inanna to Enki playfully said. Let me in my hand hold. 7 times in the course of the competition Enki to Inanna's Me's to hold gave. The divine formulas for lordship and kingship, for priesthood and scribeship. For love dressing and for warring Me's to Inanna Enki to hold gave. For music and singing, woodworking and metals and precious stones, 94 Me's that for civilized kingdoms are needed Enki to Inanna gave. Holding her prizes tightly, Inanna from the slumbering Enki slipped away. To her boat of heaven she rushed out, to soar away her pilot she instructed. When Enki from his slumber by Izamud was awakened, get hold of Inanna to Izamud, he said. When from Izamud that Inanna had already in her boat of heaven departed Enki heard, to chase Inanna in Enki's skyship Izamud he instructed. All the Me's you must retrieve to him, he said. At the approach to Enki, Izamud, Inanna's boat of heaven, intercepted. To return to Eridu and the wrath of Enki face he made her. When Inanna back to Eridu was brought, the Mies with her no more were. To her chambermaid, Ninshubur, she gave them. To the house of Anu in Unuki, Ninshubur took them. In the name of my power, in the name of my father Anu, I command you, the Mies, to return. So did Enki angrily to Inanna say, in his abode captive he held her. When of this Enlil heard, to Eridu to face his brother he came. By right the Mies have I obtained, Enki himself in my hand placed them. So did Inanna to Enlil say, the truth of that Enki meekly admitted. When the term of Kishi shall be completed, to Anuki the kingship shall pass, so did Enlil declare. When Marduk all this did hear, greatly he was enraged, his anger no bounds knew. Enough has my humiliation been, to his father Enki Marduk shouted. A sacred city of his own in the Eden from Enlil he forthwith demanded. When Enlil to Marduk's appeal no heed paid, Marduk fate in his own hands grasped. To a place that for Anu's arrival before Anuki was selected was considered, Nabu, the Agigi and their offspring from their dispersal lands summoned, for Marduk therein a sacred city, a place for sky ships to establish. When his followers at the place assembled, stones to build with they found not. Marduk how to make bricks and burn them by fire to serve as stone to them he showed. Therewith a tower whose head the heavens can reach they were building. To thwart the plan Enlil to the place hurried, to placate Marduk with soothing words he tried. To stop Marduk and Nabu in their endeavor Enlil did not succeed. In Nibruki Enlil his sons and grandchildren assembled. What to do they all considered. Marduk, an unpermitted gateway to heaven is building, to earthlings it he is entrusting, so did Enlil to his sons and grandchildren say. If this we allow to happen, no other matter of mankind shall be unreached. This evil plan must be stopped, Ninurta said. All with that agreed. It was night time when from Nibruki the Enlilite Anunnaki came. From their sky ships havoc upon the rising tower, fire and brimstones they rained. To the tower and the whole encampment a complete end they made. To scatter abroad the leader and his followers Enlil thereupon decided. Henceforth their counsels to confuse, their unity to shatter, Enlil decreed. Until now all the earthlings one language had, in a single tongue they speak. Henceforth their language I shall confound, that they each other's speech will not understand. In the 310th year since the count of earth years began, did this all happen.
Describes the Tower of Babel. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, put it in the chat that I'm wrong and I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? But to me, this sounds a lot like the story of the Tower of Babel.
In each region and every land, the people a different tongue he made to speak. A different form of writing thereafter to each was given, that one the other will not comprehend. 23 kings did in Kishi reign. For 408 years was it the scepter city. It was also in Kishi that a beloved king, Etana, for a heavenly journey was taken. At the allotted time, let kingship to Anuki be transferred, so did Enlil decree. To its soil, the heavenly bright object from Kishi was transferred. When the decision to the people was announced, to Inanna an exaltation hymn they sang. Lady of the Mies, queen, brightly resplendent, righteous in radiance clothed, of heaven and earth beloved. By the love of Anu consecrated, great adorations wearing, 7 times the Mies she obtained, in her hand she them is holding. For the tiara of kingship they are appropriate, for high priesthood suitable. Lady of the great Mies, of them she is the guardian. In the 409th year after the count of earth years began, kingship of the first region to Enki was transferred. Its first king was the high priest of Iana temple abode, a son of Utu he was. As for Marduk, to the land of the two narrows he went. To be the master of the second region, once established, he expected. Now, this is the account of how the second and third regions were established, and how Ningizida was exiled and Enki Arata threatened. When Marduk, after a long absence to the land of the two narrows, returned, Ningizida as its master he there found. Its lofty lord Ningizida was. With the aid of offspring of Anunnaki who earthlings espoused did Ningizida the lands oversee. What Marduk had once planned and instructed by Ningizida was overturned. What is this that happened, Marduk of Ningizida to know demanded. Of the destruction of hidden things Marduk Ningizida accused. Of making Haran to a desert place depart, a place that has no water. A boundless place where sexual pleasures are not enjoyed. The two brothers an uproar made, upon quarreling bitterly they embarked. Pay heed, I am here in my proper place, Marduk to Ningizida said. You have been my place taker, from now on only a deputy of mine you can be. But if to rebellion you are inclined, to another land go away you must. For 350 earth years did the brothers in the land of the two narrows quarrel. For 350 years was the land in chaos. Between the brothers it was split. Then Enki, their father, to Ningizida said, for the sake of peace to the other lands depart. To go to a land beyond the oceans Ningizida chose. With a band of followers thereto he went. 650 earth years was at that time the count. But in the new domain where Ningizida the winged serpent was called, a new count of its own began. In the land of the two narrows, the second region under Marduk's lordship was established. In the annals of the first region, Magan, land of the cascading river, it was called. But by the second region's people, when languages were confounded, Himta, the dark brown land, it was henceforth called. Netaru, guardian watchers, the Anunnaki, were there in the new language called. Marduk, as Ra, the bright one, was worshipped. Enki, as Ptah, the developer, was venerated. Ningizida, as Tahuti, the divine measurer, was recalled. To erase his memory, Ra, on the stone lion, his image with that of his son Asar replaced. To count by tens, not by 60, Ra the people made. The year he also by tens divided. The watching of the moon by the watching of the sun he replaced. Whereas under the lordship of Tahuti, the olden city of the north and the city of the south were re-established. Marduk/Ra, the two lands of the north and of the south into one crown city united. A king, an offspring of Netaru, an earthling, he there appointed. Mina was his name. Where the two lands meet and the great rivers divides, a scepter city Ra established. Splendor to surpass Kishi in the first region he gave it. Mina Nefer, Mina's beauty it was called. To honor his elders, Ra a holy city built. To honor Nibiru's king, Anu, he named it. Therein, on a platform, a temple abode for his father Enki, Ptah, he erected. Its head within a high tower like a sharp rocket skyward rose. In its shrine, Ra, the upper part of his celestial barge deposited, Bin it was called. It was the one in which from the planet of countless years he had traveled. On the day of the new year, the king, as high priest, the ceremonies performed. On that day only alone the innermost star room he entered, before the Bin offerings he put. To benefit the second region, Ptah to Ra all manner of mees gave. What do I know that you do not know? The father his son asked. Then all manner of knowledge, except that of the dead reviving, to Ra he gave. As a great one of the 12 celestials, Ptah to Ra the constellation sign of the Ram allotted. The water flow of Hapi, the land's great river, Ptah for Ra and his people regulated. Abundance in the fertile soils quickly came. Man and cattle proliferated. By the success of the second region, the leaders were encouraged. The third region to establish, they proceeded. To make it a domain of Inanna, as she was promised, they decreed. As befits the mistress of a region, a celestial constellation to her was assigned. Beforehand, with her brother Utu, the station of the twins she shared. Henceforth, as a gift from Ninharzag, her constellation of the maiden to Inanna was allotted. In the 860th year, according to Earth's year count, was Inanna so honored. Far away in the eastern lands beyond 7 mountain ranges was the third region. Samush, land of 60 precious stones, was its highland realm called. Arata, the wooden realm, was in the valley of a meandering great river located. In the great plain did the people cultivate crops of grains and horned cattle herd. There 2 cities with mud bricks they built, with granaries they were filled. As by Enlil's decree required, the Lord Enki, Lord of Wisdom, for the third region a changed tongue devised, a new kind of writing signs he for it fashioned. A tongue of man, heretofore unknown, for Arata Enki in his wisdom created. But the mees of civilized kingdoms for the third region Enki did not give. Let Inanna, what for Unuki had obtained with the new region share, so did Enki declare. In Arata, Inanna, a shepherd chief appointed, akin to her beloved Dumuzi he was. In her skyship from Unuki to Arata, Inanna journeyed over mountains and valleys she flew. The precious stones of Samush she cherished, pure lapis lazuli with her to Unuki she carried. At that time the king in Unuki was in Merkar, the second one to reign therein he was. It was he who the boundaries of Unuki expanded, by its glories was Inanna exalted. It was he who the wealth of Arata coveted, to be over Arata supreme he schemed. To Arata in Merkar an emissary dispatched as a tribute Arata's riches to demand. Over 7 mountain ranges, through parched lands and then soaked by rains, the emissary to Arata went. To the king of Arata the demand words of Inmerkar, word for word he repeated. His language the king of Arata to understand was unable. Like the bray of a donkey its sound was. A wooden scepter inscribed with a message the king of Arata to the emissary gave. To share Unuki's mees with Arata the king's message requested. As a royal gift to Unuki, grains on donkeys were loaded. With the emissary to Unuki they went. When in Merkar the inscribed scepter received its message in Unuki, no one understood. He brought it forth from light to shade, he brought it forth from shade to light. What kind of wood is this, he asked. Then to plant it in the garden he ordered. After 5 years, after 10 years had passed, from the scepter a tree grew. A tree of shade it was. What shall I do? In Merkar, in frustration, his grandfather Utu asked. With heavenly Ninsaba, the mistress of scribes and writing, Utu interceded. On a clay tablet his message to inscribe Ninsaba in Merkar taught, in the tongue of Arata it was. By the hand of his son Banta was the message delivered. Submission or war, it said. By Inanna, Arata was not abandoned. To Unuki, Arata will not submit, the king of Arata said. If warfare Unuki desires, let one warrior in combat meet. Better yet, let us peacefully treasures exchange. Let Unuki its mees for Arata's riches give. On the way back, carrying the peace message, Banta fell sick. His spirit left him. His comrades raised his neck. Without the breath of life it was. On Mount Harum, on the way from Arata, to his death was Banta abandoned. The riches of Arata, Inugi did not receive. The mees of Inuki, Arata did not obtain. In the third region, civilized mankind did not fully blossom.
So we can see how the inequality in different across the globe started this whole war. So let's dive right into the next tablet and see what the whole war is about. This is tablet 13 of 14.
Synopsis of the 13th tablet. Royal cities sprout with sacred precincts for the gods. Demigods serve as kings and priests in palaces and temples. Marduk promises his royal followers an eternal afterlife. In Sumer, Inanna encourages belief in resurrection. Celestial omens and foretelling oracles gain followings. Marduk proclaims the coming age of the ram as his sign. Ningizida builds stone observatories to show otherwise. Insurrections, wars, and invasions destabilize Enlilite lands. The mystery emissary appears to Enlil, foretells a calamity. Instructs Enlil to select a worthy man to lead survival. Enlil chooses Ibram, scion of priestly royal family. Armies raised by Nabu attempt to seize the spaceport. Overruling Enki, the gods resort to weapons of terror. Ninurta and Nergal obliterate the spaceport and sinning cities. The drifting nuclear cloud brings death to all in Sumer. In the third region, civilized mankind did not fully blossom. What to Inanna was entrusted, she neglected. Other domains not to her granted, in her heart she coveted. When from Enki, at the count of 1,000 years, kingship away was taken, who the calamity by the end or the next millennium could foresee? Who the disaster would have prevented? That in less than a third of one shar a calamity unknown would befall, who could foretell? By Inanna was the bitter end started. Marduk as Ra with destiny tangled. Ninurta and Nergal the unspeakable end with their own hands delivered. Why was Inanna with her granted domain not satisfied? Why to Marduk did unforgiving she remain? Journeying between Enki and Arata, Inanna restless and ungratified was. For her beloved Dumuzi she still mourned, her love's desire unquenched remained. When she flew about in the sun rays, Dumuzi's image she saw shimmering and beckoning. In the nighttime in dream visions he appeared. I will return, he was saying. The glories of his domain in the land of two narrows to her he was promising. In the sacred precinct of Enki, a house for nighttime pleasure she established. To this Giganu young heroes on the night of their weddings with sweet words she lured. Long life, a blissful future to them she promised. That her lover Dumuzi was she imagined. Each one in the morning in her bed was found dead. It was at that time that the hero Banda, left for dead, alive to Enki returned. By the grace of Utu, of whose seed he was, did Banda from the dead return. A miracle, excited Inanna shouted. My beloved Dumuzi to me came back. In her abode, Banda was bathed, with a sash, a fringed cloak on him was fastened. Dumuzi, my beloved, she called him. To her bed with flowers bedecked she lured him. When in the morning Banda was alive, with joy Inanna shouted. The power of not dying in my hands was placed, immortality by me is granted. To call herself a goddess, Inanna decided the power of immortality it implied. Nanar and Nergal, Inanna's parents, by her proclamation were not pleased. Enlil and Ninurta by Inanna's words were disconcerted. Utu, her brother, was bemused. The dead to revive is not possible, Enki and Ninharzag to each other said. In the lands of Ki Engi, the people there good fortune praised. The gods are among us. Death they can abolish. So to each other the people said. On the throne of Enki, Banda, his father, in Merkar, succeeded. Lugal, great man, his title was. The goddess Ninsun of Enlil seed took him to be her spouse. The hero Gilgamesh, their son, on the throne of Enki, Lugal, Banda followed. As the years passed and Gilgamesh older grew, of life and death to his mother Ninsun he spoke. About the death of his forebears, though of Anunnaki descent, he wondered. Do gods die? His mother he asked. Shall I too, though 2/3 divine, as a mortal over the wall climb? So to her he said. As long as on earth you abide, the death of an earthling will you overwhelm, Ninsun to her son said. But if to Nibiru you will be taken, long life thereon you will attain. To take Gilgamesh aloft to Nibiru journey, Ninsun to Utu the commander appealed. Endlessly Ninsun to Utu appealed, day after day with him she pleaded. Let Gilgamesh to the landing place go, Utu in the end agreed. To guide and protect him, Ninharzag a double of Gilgamesh fashioned. Enkidu, as the Enki created, was he called. Of a womb he was not born, blood in his veins was not. With the comrade Enkidu, Gilgamesh to the landing place journeyed. Utu, with oracles, his progress oversaw. At the entrance to the cedar forest, its fire-belching monster their way blocked. With trickery that they the monster confused, to pieces it they broke. When the secret entrance to the tunnels of the Anunnaki they found, by the bull of heaven, a creature of Enlil, with deathly snorts they were challenged. To the gates of Enki the monster them chased. At the city's ramparts by Enkidu it was smitten. When Enlil this heard, with agony he cried. In the heavens of Anu was his wailing heard. For in his heart Enlil well knew, bad indeed was the omen. For having the bull of heaven slain, to perish in waters Enkidu was punished. Gilgamesh, having by Ninsun and Utu been instructed of the slaying, was absolved. Still, the long life of Nibiru seeking, Gilgamesh to proceed to the place of the chariots by Utu was permitted. After many adventures, the land of Tilmun, the fourth region, he reached. Through its subterranean tunnels he proceeded. In a garden of precious stones, Sasudra he met. The events of the deluge Sasudra to Gilgamesh related. The secret of long living to Gilgamesh he revealed. A plant in the garden's well was growing. Sasudra and his spouse from getting old it prevented. Unique of all the plants on earth it was. By it a man full vigor can regain. Man at old age is young again. This is the plant's name, Sasudra to Gilgamesh said. A gift of Enki with Enlil's blessing on the mount of salvation to us was granted. When Sasudra and his spouse were asleep, Gilgamesh to his feet stones tied. Into the well he dived, the plant of being young again he grasped and uprooted. With the plant in his satchel, through the tunnels he hurried, to Enki he made his way. When he tired and was asleep, a snake by the plant's fragrance was attracted. The plant did the snake snatch from the sleeping Gilgamesh. With the plant it vanished. In the morning, his lost discovering, Gilgamesh sat and wept. To Enki empty-handed he returned, as a mortal therein he died. 7 more kings in Enki after Gilgamesh reigned, then its kingship to an end came. Precisely when the count of 1,000 earth years was completed it was. To Urim, the city of Nanar and Ningal, was kingship of the first region transferred. To all these matters that in the other regions were occurring, Marduk much heed gave. By Inanna's dreams and visions, to Dumuzi's domain alluding, Ra was disturbed. To counteract Inanna's schemes of expansions, he was determined. In the matters of resurrection and immortality he found much to ponder. The thought of divine godship to him greatly appealed. To be a great god himself he announced. By what to Gilgamesh in good measure an earthling was permitted, Ra was angered. But a clever way wherewith the loyalty of kings and people to retain he deemed it. If demigods, the gateway to immortality, are shown, let this to the kings of my region apply. So did Marduk in the second region by the name Ra known to himself words say. let the kings of the region Neteru offspring be, to Nibiru in an afterlife journey. So did Ra in his realm decree. The gods how to build tombs facing eastward he taught. To the prescribes a long book he dictated, the afterlife journey in detail in it was described. How to reach the Duat, the place of the celestial boats, in the book was told. How to there, by a stairway to heaven, to the imperishable planet journey. Of the plant of life partake, the waters of youth to satiation drink. Of the coming of the gods to earth by Ra were the priests taught. Gold is the splendor of life to them, he said. The flesh of the gods it is, to the kings Ra said. To make expeditions to the Abzu and the lower domain, gold to obtain, the kings he instructed. When by the force of weapons the kings of Ra lands not theirs conquered, his brothers' realms he invaded. Their ire he calls to arise and grow. What is Marduk up to, the brothers each other asked, that over us he tramples?
Bruh. To the priests and scribes, a long book he dictated. The afterlife journey in detail it was described. How to reach the Duat, the place of celestial boats, in the book was told. How to there, by a stairway to heaven, to the imperishable planet journey. Of the plant of life partake, the waters of youth to satiation drink. Bruh, talk about propaganda.
To their father Enki they appealed. To Ptah his father Ra did not listen. To capture all adjoining lands, the kings of Magan and Meluha Ra directed. To be the master of the four regions was his heart's plan. The earth is mine to rule, so adamantly to his father he said. Now this is the account of how Marduk, supreme himself declared, and Babili built, and how Inanna, warrior kings commanding, blood made flow, and sacrileges allowed. After kingship to Urim from Enki was transferred, Nannar and Ningal on the people smiled. As his rank of 30 befitting, as the god of the moon, Nannar was worshipped. As the count of the moon months in a year, 12 festivals each year he decreed. To each of the 12 great Anunnaki a month and its festival were dedicated. Throughout the first region to the Anunnaki gods, great and lesser ones, shrines and sanctuaries were built. The people to their gods could directly pray. In the first region, civilization from Enki to other neighboring lands spread. In cities of man, local rulers as righteous shepherds were designated. Artisans and farmers, shepherds and weavers, their products far and wide exchanged. Laws of justice were decreed, contracts of trade, of espousal and divorce were honored. In schools the young ones studied, scribes, hymns, and proverbs and wisdom recorded. Abundance and happiness were in the lands, quarrels and encroachments there were also. All the while Inanna in her skyship from land to land roamed. Near the upper sea with Utu she frolicked. To the domain of her uncle Ishkur she went. Dudu, beloved, she called him. To the people who in the upper plain of the two rivers dwelt, Inanna took a liking. The sound of their tongue she found pleasant. To speak their language she learned. By the name of the planet Lahamu, in their tongues Ishtar they called her. Uruk, her city, Enki they called. Dudu, as Adad in their language they pronounced. Sin, Lord of oracles, her father Nannar they named. Urim, city by them was called. Shamash, bright sun, in their tongue Utu they called. Him too they worshipped. Enlil, by them father Elil was called. Nippur by them was Nibruki. Kienji, land of the lofty watchers, Shumer in their language was named. In Shumer, the first region, kingship between the cities was rotated. In the second region, diversity by Ra was not permitted, alone to reign he wished. The eldest of heaven, firstborn who is on earth, thus by the priest to be known he wanted. The foremost from the earliest times, so he decreed in the hymns to be called, Lord of eternity, he who everlastingness has made, over all the gods presiding. The one who is without equal, the great solitary and sole one. So did Marduk as Ra, above all other gods himself in place. Their powers and attributes to himself he by himself assigned. As Enlil I am for lordship and decrees, as Ninurta for the hoe and combat. As Adad for lightning and thunder, as Nanar for illuminating the night. As Utu I am Shamash, as Nergal over the lower world I reign. As Gibel the golden depths I know, whence copper and silver come I have found. As Ningazida numbers and their count I command, the heavens my glory bespeak. By these proclamations the Anunnaki leaders were greatly alarmed. To their father Enki the brothers of Marduk spoke. Nergal to Ninurta their concerns conveyed. What has you overpowered? Enki to his son Marduk said. Unheard of are your pretensions. The heavens, my supremacy bespeak, Marduk his father Enki answered. The bull of heaven, Enlil's constellation sign, by his own offspring was slain. In the heavens the age of the ram, my age, is coming. Unmistakable the omens are. In his abode, in Eridu, the circle of the 12 constellations Enki examined. On the first day of spring, the beginning of a year, sunrise was carefully observed. In the constellation stars of the bull was the sun that day rising. In Nibriki and Urim, Enlil, and Nanar the observations made. In the lower world, where the instrument station had been, Nergal the results attested. Still, remote was the time of the ram. The age of the bull of Enlil it still was. In his domains, Marduk in his assertions did not relent. By Nabu he was assisted. To domains not his emissaries he sent, to the people that his time has come to announce. To Ningazida the Anunnaki leaders appealed. How to the people the skies to observe to teach? In his wisdom stone structures Ningazida devised. Ninurta and Ishkur to erect them helped. In the settled lands near and far, the people how the skies to observe they taught. The sun in the constellation of the bull was still rising to the people they showed. With sorrow did Enki these ongoings watch, how fate the rightful order twisted he pondered. After the Anunnaki as gods themselves declared, on mankind's support they instead are dependent. In the first region to unify the lands under one leader the Anunnaki decided. A warrior king they desired. To Inanna, of Marduk the adversary, the task of the right man to find they entrusted. A strong man whom on her journeys she had met and loved, Inanna to Enlil indicated. Arbakad of 4 garrisons the commander was his father, a high priestess his mother was. Scepter and crown Enlil him gave. Sharukin, righteous regent Enlil him appointed. As on Nibiru once was done, a new crown city, the lands to unify, was established. Agade, the unified city they named it, not far from Kishi it was located. By Enlil was Sharukin empowered, Inanna with her weapons of brilliance his warriors accompanied. All the lands from the lower sea to the upper sea to his throne obedience gave. At the borders of the 4th region to protect it his troops were stationed. With a cautious eye, Ra on Inanna and Sharukin constantly gazed. Then as a falcon on his prey he pounced. From the place where Marduk the tower to heaven reaching to build had attempted, sacred soil from there to Agade did Sharukin move, therein the heavenly bright object to implant. Enraged did Marduk to the first region rush, with Nabu and followers to the tower's place they came. Of the sacred soil I alone the possessor am, by me shall a gateway of the gods be established, So did Marduk vehemently announce instructions the river to divert to his followers he gave. Dikes and walls in the place of the tower they raised. The Isagil, house of the utmost god, for Marduk they built. Babili, the gateway of the gods, Nabu in his father's honor named it. In the heart of the Eden, in the midst of the first region, Marduk himself established. Inanna's fury no boundary knew, with her weapons on Marduk's followers death she inflicted. The blood of people as never before on earth like rivers flowed. To his brother Marduk, Nergal, to Babili came, for the sake of the people Babili to leave him he persuaded. Let us peacefully wait for the true signs of heaven, Nergal to his brother said. To depart Marduk agreed, from land to land the skies to watch he traveled. Amun, the unseen one, in the second region was Ra henceforth called. For a while was Inanna appeased. 2 sons of Shuriken his peaceful successors were. Then on the throne of Agade Shuriken's grandson ascended, Naram-Sin. By Sin loved he was called. In the first region Enlil and Ninurta absent were. To the lands beyond the oceans they went. In the second region Ra was away, as Marduk in other lands he traveled. Her chance in her hands to seize all powers Inanna envisioned. Naram-Sin to seize all lands she commanded. To march against Magan and Meluha, Marduk domains, Naram-Sin she instructed. The sacrilege of Earthling's army through the fourth region, passing Naram-Sin committed. Magan he invaded, the sealed Eker, house which like a mountain is, to enter he attempted. By the sacrileges and transgressions Enlil was infuriated, upon Naram-Sin and Agade a curse put. By a bite of a scorpion did Naram-Sin die. By the command of Enlil was Agade wiped out. At the count of 1,500 earth years did this happen. Now this is the account of the prophecy by Galzu to Enlil in a vision given. About Marduk's supremacy it was, how a calamity to survive a man to choose. After Marduk, Amun became kingship in the second region, disintegrated, disorder and confusion reigned. After Agade was wiped out, in the first region there was disorder, confusion reigned. In the first region, kingship was in disarray. From the cities of the gods to the cities of man it moved about. Anugi, Lagash, Urim, Kish, Ison, and to faraway places kingship was shifting. Then Enlil, with Anu consulting, kingship in the lands of Nanar deposited. To Urim, in whose soil the divine heavenly bright object remained implanted, kingship for the third time was granted. In Urim, a righteous shepherd of men, Nanar as king appointed. Namu was his name. Equity in the lands Namu established. To violence and strife an end he made. In all the lands prosperity was abundant. It was at that time that in the nighttime Enlil a dream vision had. The image of a man to him appeared, bright and shining like the heavens he was. As he approached and by Enlil's bed stood, Enlil the white-haired Galzu recognized. In his left hand a tablet of lapis lazuli he was holding. The starry heavens on it were designed. By the 12 constellation signs were the heavens divided. To them with his left hand Galzu pointed. From the bull to the ram Galzu his pointing shifted. 3 times the pointing he repeated. Then in the dream vision Galzu spoke up and to Enlil thus said, "The righteous time of benevolence and peace by evil doing and bloodshed will be followed. In 3 celestial portions the ram of Marduk, the bull of Enlil will we place. One who himself as supreme God has declared supremacy on earth will seize. A calamity, as has never before occurred, by fate decreed will happen. At the time of the deluge, a righteous and worthy man must be chosen. By him and his seed will civilized mankind, as by the Creator of all intended, be preserved." So did Galzu, the divine emissary to Enlil in the dream vision, say. When Enlil from the nighttime dream vision awakened, there was no tablet beside his bed. Was it an oracle from heaven, or did it all in my heart imagined? Enlil to himself wondered. To none of his sons, Nannar among them, nor to Enlil did he of the dream vision tell. Among the priests in Nibriki temple, Enlil of celestial savants inquired. Tirhu, an oracle priest, to him the high priest indicated. Of Ebru, of Arbakad, the grandson, he was descended. 6 generations of Nibriki priest he was. With the royal daughters of Urim's kings they were intermarried. Get yourself to Nannar's temple in Urim, the heavens for celestial time observe. 72 earth years is the count of a celestial portion. The passage of 3 thereof carefully record. So did Enlil to Tirhu the priest say. The prophesied time he made him count. While Enlil the dream vision and its portents pondered, Marduk from land to land went. Of his supremacy the people he was telling, to followers gain was his purpose. In the lands of the upper sea and the lands of Kienji bordering, Nabu, Marduk's son, was the people inciting. To seize the 4th region was his plan. Between the dwellers of the west and the dwellers of the east clashes were occurring. King's host of warriors formed, caravans ceased going, the walls of cities were raised. What Galzu had foretold indeed is happening, Enlil to himself said. Upon Tirhu and his sons, of worthy lineage descended, Enlil set his gaze. This is the man to choose, by Galzu indicated, Enlil to himself said. To Nannar, without the dream vision revealing, Enlil to his son thus said. In the land between the rivers whence Arbakad had come, a city like Urim establish. A home abode away from Urim, let it for you in Ningal be. In its midst a temple shrine establish. The priest prince Tirhu in charge thereof appoint. By his father's word abiding, Nannar in the land of Arbakad the city of Haran established. To be high priest in its temple shrine Tirhu he sent, his family with him. When 2 celestial portions out of the prophesied 3 were completed, did Tirhu to Haran go. At that time Namu, the joy of Urim, in the western lands from his chariot fell and died. On the throne of Urim, his son Shulgi, he him succeeded. Full of vile and eager for battles Shulgi was. In Nibriki himself high priest he anointed. In Unuki the joys of Inanna's vulva he sought. Warriors from the mountain lands to Nannar not beholden, in his army he enlisted. With their help the western lands he overran. The sanctity of Mission Control Center he ignored. In the sacred 4th region his foot he set. King of the 4 regions himself he declared. About the defilements Enlil was angered. About the invadings Enki to Enlil spoke. The rulers of your region all bounds have exceeded, Enki to Enlil bitterly said. Of all the troubles Marduk in the fountainhead, Enlil to Enki retorted. Still the dream vision to himself keeping, Enlil to Tirhu attention turned. Upon Ebrum, the eldest son of Tirhu, Enlil cast the choosing gaze. A princely offspring, valiant and with priestly secrets acquainted Ebrum was. To protect the sacred places the chariot's ascents and descents enable, Enlil Ebrum to go commanded. No sooner did Ebrum from Haran depart than in that city Marduk arrived. The defilements he too had observed, as birth pangs of a new order he them deemed. From Haran on the threshold of Shumer his final thrust he planned. From Haran, at the edge of Ishkar's domains situated, the raising of armies he directed. When 24 earth years of his sojourn in Haran had passed, Marduk to the other gods, of whomever descended, cheerfully an appeal made. Confessing his transgressions, but insisting on his lordship, to them he thus said, O gods of Haran, O great gods who judge, learn my secrets. As I girdle my belt, my memories I remember. I am the divine Marduk, a great god. In my domains as Ra am I known. For my sins to exile I went, to the mountains have I gone, in many lands I wandered, from where the sun rises to where the sun sets I went, to the land of Ishkar I came. 24 years in the midst of Haran I nested, an omen in its temple I sought. Until when, about my lordship, an omen in the temple I ask. Your days of exile are completed, to me the oracle in the temple said. O great gods, who the fates determine, let me to my city set my course. My temple, Isagil, as an everlasting abode establish, a king in Babili install. In my temple house let all the Anunnaki gods assemble, my covenant accept. So did Marduk, confessing and appealing to the other gods his coming announce. By his appeal for their submission, the Anunnaki gods were disturbed and alarmed. To a great assembly, counseled to take, Enlil them all summoned. All the Anunnaki leaders in Nibriki gathered. Enki and Marduk's brothers also came. About the happenings all of them were agitated. Opposed to Marduk and Nebu they were all. In the council of the great gods, accusations were rampant. Recriminations filled the chamber. What is coming no one can prevent. Let us Marduk's supremacy accept, Enki alone counseled. If the time of the ram is coming, let us Marduk of the bond heaven earth deprive, Enlil in anger proposed. To obliterate the place of the celestial chariots, all except Enki agreed. To use therefore the weapons of Terra, Nergal suggested. Only Enki was opposed. Of the decision, earth to Anu the words pronounced, Anu to earth the words repeated. What was destined to be, by your decision to undo will fail, so did Enki say as he departed. The evil thing to carry out Ninurta and Nergal were selected. Now this is the account of how fate to destiny did lead. How, step by step, some in long forgotten times taken, the great calamity made happen. Now let it for all time be recorded and remembered. When the decision to use the weapons of Terra was made, to himself Enlil 2 secrets kept. To no one, before the terrible decision was taken, did Enlil the secret of Galzu's dream vision reveal. To no one, until the fateful decision was made, did Enlil his knowledge of the Terra's hiding place disclose. When despite all protestations the council to use the weapons of Terra permitted, when Enki, anger and distraught the council chamber left, in his heart was Enki smiling. Only he knew where the weapons were hidden. So did Enki think. For it was he, before Enlil to earth had come, who with Abgal in a place unknown the weapons did hide. That Abgal to the exiled Enlil the place disclosed, that to Enki was unknown. When Enki the second secret heard, in his heart a wishful thought he harbored, that after such a long sojourn the weapons Terra would have evaporated. Little did Enki expect the long sojourn a calamity as never before known on earth to cause. Thus, it was that without Enki needing, Enlil to the 2 heroes the hiding place disclosed. Those 7 weapons of Terra in a mountain they abide, to them Enlil said. In a cavity inside the earth they dwell, with the Terra to clad them is required. Then the secret of how the weapons from their deep sleep awaken, Enlil to them did reveal. Before the 2 sons, one of Enlil, one of Enki, to the hiding place departed, Enlil to them words of forewarning said, Ere the weapons are used, by the Anunnaki must the chariot's place be vacated. The cities must be spared, the people must not perish. In his skyship Nergal to the hiding place soared, Ninurta by his father was delayed. A word to his son alone Enlil wished to say, a secret to him alone reveal. About the prophecy of Galzu and the choosing of Ibram to Ninurta he told. Hot-headed is Nergal, make sure that the cities are spared, that Ibram is forewarned, to Ninurta Enlil said. When Ninurta at the weapon's place arrived, Nergal from the cavity had already them brought out. As their Mies from the long slumber he awakened, to each one of the 7 Nergal a task name gave. The one without rival, the first weapon he called, the blazing flame he named the second. The one who with Terra crumbles he called the third. Mountain melter the fourth he called. Wind that the rim of the world seeks he named the fifth. The one who above and below no one spares was the sixth. The 7th with monstrous venom was filled. Vaporizer of living things he called it. With Anu's blessing were the 7 to Nergal and Ninurta given, therewith to destruction wreak. When Ninurta at the place of the weapons of terror arrived, to destroy and annihilate was Nergal ready. I shall kill the son, I will annihilate the father, Nergal with vengeance was shouting. The lands they covet will vanish, the sinning cities I will upheaval, so did Nergal enraged announce. Valiant Nergal, will you the righteous with the unrighteous destroy? So did Ninurta his comrade ask. The instructions of Enlil are clear. To the selected targets the way I will lead, you behind me will follow. The decision of the Anunnaki to me is known, Nergal to Ninurta said. For 7 days and 7 nights the signal from Enlil the two awaited. As was his intention, when his waiting was completed, Marduk to Babili returned. In the presence of his followers, with weapons armed, his supremacy he declared. 1,736 was the count of earth years then. On that day, on that fateful day, Enlil to Ninurta the signal sent. To Mount Mashu Ninurta departed. Behind him Nergal followed. The mount and the plain in the heart of the 4th region Ninurta from the sky surveyed. With a squeezing in his heart, to Nergal a sign he gave. Keep off to him, he signaled. Then the first terror weapon from the skies Ninurta let loose. The top of Mount Mashu was a flash, it sliced off. The mount's innards, in an instant it melted. Above the place of the celestial chariots, the second weapon he unleashed. With a brilliance of 7 suns, the plain's rocks into a gushing wound were made. The earth shook and crumbled. The heavens after the brilliance were darkened. With burnt and crushed stones was the plain of the chariots covered. Of all the forest that the plain had surrounded, only tree stems were left standing. It is done, Ninurta from the skyship, his black divine bird, words shouted. The control that Marduk and Nabu so coveted, of it they are forever deprived. Then to emulate Ninurta Nergal desired. To be Era the annihilator his heart him urged. Following the king's highway to the verdant valley of the 5 cities he flew. In the verdant valley where Nabu the people was converting, Nergal as a caged bird to squash him planned. Over the 5 cities, one after the other, Era upon each from the skies a terror weapon sent. The 5 cities of the valley he finished off. To desolation they were overturned. With fire and brimstone were they upheavaled. All that lived there to vapor was turned. By the awesome weapons were mountains toppled. Where the sea waters were barred, the bolt broke open. Down in the valley the sea's waters poured. By the waters was the valley flooded. When upon the city's ashes the waters poured, steam to the heavens was rising. It is done, Era in the skyship shouted. In Nergal's heart there was no more vengeance. Surveying the evil handiwork, the 2 heroes by what they saw were puzzled. By a darkening of the skies where the brilliances followed, then a storm to blow began, swirling within a dark cloud, gloom from the skies an evil wind carried. As the day wore on, the sun on the horizon with darkness it obliterated. At nighttime a dreaded brilliance skirted its edges, the moon at its rising it made disappear. When dawn the next morning came, from the west, from the upper sea, a storm wind began blowing. The dark brown cloud eastward it directed, toward the settled lands did the cloud spread. Wherever it reached, death to all that lives mercilessly it delivered. From the valley of no pity, by the brilliance's spawn, toward Shumer the death was carried. To Enlil and Enki, Ninurta and Nergal the alarm sounded. Unstoppable, the evil wind, death to all delivers. The alarm Enlil and Enki to the gods of Shumer transmitted. Escape, escape, to them all they cried out. Let the people disperse, let the people hide. From their cities the gods did flee, like frightened birds from their nest escaping they were. The people of the lands by the evil storm's hand were clutched. Futile was the running. Stealthy was the death, like a ghost the fields and cities it attacked. The highest walls, the thickest walls, like floodwaters it passed. No door could shut it out. No bolt could turn it back. Those who behind locked doors hid inside their houses like flies were felled. Those who to the streets fled, in the streets were their corpses piled up. Cough and phlegm the chest filled, the mouths with spittle and foam filled up. As the evil wind the people unseen engulfed, their mouths were drenched with blood. Slowly over the lands the evil wind blew. From west to east over plains and mountains it traveled. Everything that lived behind it was dead and dying. People and cattle, all alike perished. The waters were poisoned. In the fields all vegetation withered. From Eridu in the south to Sippar in the north did the evil wind the land overwhelm. Babili, where Marduk's supremacy declared, by the evil wind was spared.
That's tablet 13 of 14. We're going to move right into tablet 14 without hesitation. This, my friend, the last book of Enki was basically a compilation of the ancient tablets found across the world. Zachariah Sitchin went and compiled it all, canonized it, and rewrote the entire thing from the first person perspective. So this is like the most comprehensive story of the olden times, before the Bible days, all the way into the Bible days, through the Bible days, until almost present. So let's go into tablet 14. And thanks for the support, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here on Real Talk. Follow me on Rumble at Rasta Ren _876. Follow me on Twitch. I'm also on Kick. Facebook, Rasta Ren 876, YouTube, and X. Let's continue.
Synopsis of the 14th tablet. Babili, Marduk's chosen sinner, survives the calamity. Enki sees it as an omen of Marduk's inevitable supremacy. Enlil ponders the past, fate, and destiny. Accepts Marduk's supremacy, retreats to faraway lands. The brothers bid a sentimental goodbye. Enki sees the past as a guide for telling the future. He decides to commit all as a record for posterity. Colophon by the scribe in Dubzar. Babili, where Marduk's supremacy declared, by the evil wind was spared. All the lands south of Babili the evil wind devoured. The heart of the second region it also touched. When in the aftermath of the great calamity Enlil and Enki to survey the havoc met, Enki to Enlil the sparing of Babili as a divine omen considered. That Marduk to supremacy has been destined by the sparing of Babili is confirmed, so did Enki to Enlil say. The will of the creator of all it must have been, Enlil to Enki said. Then to him the dream vision and prophecy of Galzu Enlil revealed. If that by you was known, why did you the use of the weapons of terror not prevent? Enki him asked. My brother, Enlil to Enki with a sorrowed voice said, enough seen was the reason. Whenever after your coming to earth the mission by an obstacle obstructed was, a way the obstruction to circumvent we have found. Of that, the fashioning of the earthlings the greatest solution. Also the fountain of a myriad unwanted twists and turns was. When you have the celestial cycles fathomed and the constellations assigned, who in them the hands of destiny could foresee? Who could between our chosen fates and our unbending destiny distinguish? Whose false omens proclaimed? Who true prophecies could pronounce? Therefore, to keep to myself the words of Galzu I decided. Was he truly the creator of all's emissary? Was he my hallucination? Let whatever has to happen, happen, so to myself I said. To his brother's words, Enki listened. His head up and down he nodded. The first region is desolate. The second region is in confusion. The third region is wounded. The place of the celestial chariots is no more. That is what has happened, Enki to Enlil said. If that was the will of the Creator of all, that is what our mission to earth remained. By the ambitions of Marduk was the seed sown. What the crop resulted is for him to reap. So did Enlil to his brother Enki say. Then he the triumph of Marduk accepted. Let the rank of 50, by me for Ninurta intended, to Marduk instead be given. Let Marduk over the desolation in the regions his supremacy declare. As for me and Ninurta, we will in his way no longer stand. To the lands beyond the oceans we will depart. What we had come for, the mission to obtain for Nibiru gold, we will complete. So did Enlil to Enki say. Dejection was in his words. Would different matters have been were the weapons of Terra unused? Enki his brother challenged. So we have the words of Galzu to Nibiru not return heeded, Enlil retorted. Should Earth mission been stopped when the Anunnaki mutinied? I, what I did, did. You, what you did, did. The past undone cannot become. It is not in that too a lesson? Enki asked them both. Is not what on earth happened, what on Nibiru had taken place mirrored? Is not in that the tale of the past, the outline of the future written? Will mankind, in our image created, our attainments and failures repeat? Enlil was silent. As he stood up to leave, Enki to him his arm extended. Let us lock arms as brothers, as comrades who together challenges on an alien planet confronted. So did Enki to his brother say. And Enlil, grasping his brother's arm, hugged him as well. Shall we meet again on Earth or on Nibiru? Enki asked. Was Galzu right that we die if we to Nibiru go? Enlil responded. Then he turned and departed. Alone was Enki left. Only by the thoughts of his heart was he accompanied. How it all began, and how it thus far ended, he sat and pondered. Was it all destined, or was it fate by this and that decision fashioned? If heaven and earth by cycles within cycles regulated, what had happened will again occur? Is the past the future? Will the earthlings the Anunnaki emulate? Will Earth relive Nibiru? Will he, the first to arrive, the last to leave be? Besieged by thoughts, Enki a decision made. All the events and decisions, starting with Nibiru to this day on Earth, to put in a record, a guide to future generations to become. Let posterity, at a time by destiny designated, the record read. The past remember, the future as prophecy understand. Let the future of the past the judge be. These are the words of Enki, firstborn of Anu of Nibiru, 14th tablet. The words of the Lord Enki, written from the mouth of the great Lord Enki. Not one word missed, not one word added, by the master scribe Endubsar, a man of Eridu, son of Udbar. By the Lord Enki with long life I have been blessed.
So there we have it. Of Enki in its entirety. We went from tablet 1 to tablet 14. Took us maybe a month and a half. But we're there. You know what I mean? And what we learned from this mankind was not created by the creator of all. We were created from what we call the Homo erectus, and we were created by the splicing of genes by another being from another planet called Nibiru. Planet Nibiru is a part of our solar system. It's a reddish planet, similar in color to Mars. It's on an elongated orbit that comes close to the sun and goes far out, similar to the orbit of Pluto in a sense. What we learned is that life on Earth was seeded from this planet called Nibiru as well. A lot of the plants and animals that we have on our planet also came from Nibiru. So, shout out to Nibiru and the Nibiruans, bro. You know what I mean? What we also found is that religion was started by a single individual who decided, I was supposed to inherit the earth, and because the earth was not granted to him legally, he decided to start a coup d'etat to, usurp the powers that be at the time. So, after a while, the first deluge was the flood. Then they reestablished civilization. Then came a whole nuclear war that brought everything to an end. And it ends there, but it leaves us wondering with a lot more questions. Where are the Nibiruans now? You know what I mean? Because Marduk was here for thousands of years. Enki and Enlil, they were all here for thousands of years. Ningizida and all them. You know what I mean? Anu was still around on his planet even while the war was going on, because he gave his permission for them to use the nuclear weapons. You know what I mean? So it opens up a whole lot of questions. But that's the end of the tablets. We learned a lot from going through all this. Come next week, we're gonna change the way we do the show, guys. You know what I mean? We're gonna do things differently from here on out. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna do 1 week of just male and female interrelationship dynamics, where we're gonna touch on a whole lot of different topics, that just everything regarding male and female interrelationship dynamics. From there, we're also gonna dedicate another Sunday to just herbal remedies for different ailments. We might be busting out a couple of the powerful books that list out different herbal remedies and what they're used for and stuff like that. And then we're also gonna get back to reading ancient manuscripts and things like that. For the next read, I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe the book of Enoch or the Enuma Elish, or I don't know. I'll make up my mind. But we're not going to read for the next 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to go into male and female interrelationship dynamics. I'll be preparing a lot of slides and a lot of videos. Well, maybe not slides, but videos for us to review. And I'll give my take. I might also have an open forum on Zoom where people can join in, chime in, and give their take on the videos we're going to be reviewing. Next week, Sunday, let me look at the calendar here. Sunday, the 22nd of September on Real Talk. Most of it might just have to be hosted on just like Rumble, X, Locals, those free speech platforms. Because when you get down to when you get down to criticizing certain things, we're often censored. My Facebook page just got nuked for some video that I posted like back in May or something like that. I guess when they change the rules, they just strike you on videos and demonetize your channel and all that crap. So rumble.com is the free speech platform, guys. Find me on rumble.com, Rasta Ren _876. So rumble.com / Rasta Ren _876. That's a free speech platform. Also, when we go about talking about herbal remedies, we'll also have to do that on the free speech platform, Rumble. Because what's going to happen is, if we do this on platforms like YouTube or Facebook, you're going to immediately get striked with what they call medical misinformation. Okay? Because I don't know what it is. In my opinion, I would really love to have the freedom to share the herbal remedies I know from home. I was lucky enough to be born in Jamaica, where our parents and grandparents know a plant that is good for different things. So the freedom to share that information is severely obstructed on platforms like Facebook and YouTube. You know what I mean? So follow me on Rumble or on X, or what we call Twitter, x.com. My handle is at Rasta Ren _876. YouTube, Rasta Ren _876. Twitch, Kick, Instagram, TikTok, all these wonderful platforms. You know what I mean? But then speech is limited on most of these platforms. The main platform we're building up is Rumble, rumble.com / Rasta Ren _876. Follow me on Rumble, guys. Link is in the description. So next week, as I stated, we'll be diving into male and female relationship dynamics. Thanks for the support. You know what I mean? Let me say love to everyone who take the time out to watch the video, drop a comment, share, like, subscribe, follow, do all the things to make this to push this video in the algorithm, guys. Because again, speech is limited on a lot of platforms, so we have to rely on the free speech platforms to share real information on real talk. You know what I mean? So I appreciate the support. See you guys next week. Peace and love.